What's going on, everyone? It's Joe Rapp from Adoption, and in today's video, I'll be running you through a Bitcoin news update. So you see right here in the headline, today we're going to be talking about Tesla. This morning, they've officially announced that they've purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, and in today's episode, I'll be building in some context about this decision that Elon Musk has made, why it happened, some indicators we saw leading up to today, and then I'll also expand a little bit further to build some context into what companies, publicly traded companies, are starting to think about now that there's risks of inflation within the dollar and other major fiat currencies around the world. So be kind of building a little bit of context around why Tesla's doing what they're doing and why other companies might start doing the same. And I believe they will. Tesla's really leading the way here. All right, so let's jump straight into it here. So you'll see right off the bat, the first article we're going to start with is from CNBC. And again, today's date is February 8th, 2021. And Tesla has announced that it buys $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, plans to accept it as a payment. So you'll see Tesla announced in an SEC filing Monday that it has bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. The company also said it would start accepting Bitcoin as a payment method for its products. CEO Elon Musk has been credited for raising the prices of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, through his messages on Twitter. So let's break down this article real quick. So let's start with just their top bullet points here. So again, Tesla has announced this morning that they're purchasing $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. What are they doing with this Bitcoin? Well, what they're doing is that they are putting it on their balance sheet. So they're taking cash that they have right now in their treasury, so cash reserves that Tesla, the company, has, and they are converting that into Bitcoin. They're converting $1.5 billion worth of cash that they have right now into Bitcoin for their corporate treasuries. Okay, so that's exactly what Tesla's doing. That's what they've done. The second bullet point that I want to cover is that they've announced that they are going to start accepting Bitcoin as a payment method for their products. So many of you know about the Tesla products. They sell electric cars, they sell solar panel roofs, they sell Powerwall units, and they sell new batteries as well. So what they've announced is not only are they planning to, or not only have they purchased Bitcoin for their treasuries, they're planning to allow customers to pay in Bitcoin for their products. So what this means is that on top of the $1.5 billion they just bought in Bitcoin, they will be accumulating more Bitcoin passively as customers begin to potentially pay for their products in Bitcoin. And I actually thought I read an article earlier talking about how, Elon Musk might start off by saying one Bitcoin will buy you the Cybertruck. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But it's an interesting strategy for their company because not only are they reserving in it, but they've opened up a new channel in their business model for the ability for people to pay them in Bitcoin. And that means that they've got an additional stream of Bitcoin coming in that they can reserve in. And now they'll have the ability to reserve in it because they have a new Bitcoin treasury reserve with the company. And the last bullet point here, of course, we know Elon Musk. He's a meme lord. He's a meme artist. And he has been tweeting about cryptocurrencies quite a bit the last couple of weeks. We've seen that he put Bitcoin in his bio, his Twitter bio. He's talked quite a bit about Bitcoin as a currency. And today really solidified Tesla's commitment to Bitcoin by purchasing $1.5 billion worth. So I want to head over to the chart next, Bitcoin charts. The news broke this morning and it pumped Bitcoin about 10% on the day, past the last all-time high. So this morning Bitcoin was hovering around the mid $38,000 range. And since that news has broke, it has pumped us up to a trading range of now around $43,000. That did push us past the last Bitcoin all-time high, which was on January 8th, I believe, of this year. So we have now broken the last prior all-time high, and we'll see where price goes from here. Now let's take a step back and let's kind of look at what led us up to today. What led us to Tesla announcing their $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin that they've purchased. So this is on December 20th. So again, Elon Musk, the meme lord, right? And he's making it very clear here that he's interested in Bitcoin. He's trying to have a normal, productive life, but he can't get away from it, right? And one of the second things I want to point out with these tweets around Bitcoin that Elon Musk was making is that Michael Saylor was tweeting right back at him. We'll talk about Michael Saylor again a little bit more here in the next couple of minutes. But for those that don't know, Michael Saylor is the CEO of Microstrategy. Microstrategy is a publicly traded company. Microstrategy was the first publicly traded company to purchase Bitcoin this past year in 2020. Michael Saylor, as the CEO of this company, was the first CEO to purchase Bitcoin for their corporate treasuries. Since then, MicroStrategy has purchased over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, and they've done the exact same thing. So he was looking at cash that his company had, and he decided to take a portion of that cash, over $1 billion worth, and convert it into Bitcoin. Michael Saylor is also a rocket scientist. He's a pilot, so he connects real well with Elon Musk. But you'll see here that this tweet, he says, if you want to do your shareholders a $100 billion favor, convert the Tesla balance sheet from USD to Bitcoin. Other firms on the S&P 500 would follow your lead, and in time it would grow to become a $1 trillion favor. Elon Musk replies, are such transactions even possible? Michael Saylor replies, yes, I have purchased over 1.3 billion in Bitcoin in the past months and would be happy to share my playbook with you offline, from one rocket scientist to another. So this is big news. This was the first that we saw that the thoughts were really storming around in Elon's mind. And Michael Saylor has really done an incredible job of making it very clear and comfortable for companies to understand how they can do this, how they can start allocating cash in their balance sheets, cash in their treasuries into Bitcoin. So this was on December 20th. Well, what happened this past week, last week? Michael Saylor hosted an event called Bitcoin for Corporations. So this was a virtual event down in Miami, but it was virtual. Anyone could have attended. I attended myself. And what Michael Saylor did is he broke down all of the steps for corporations to understand how they can purchase Bitcoin. So you'll see here, Bitcoin corporate strategy was one video. Bitcoin corporate playbook was another one. Bitcoin legal considerations, finance considerations. And then he also walked them through all of the various exchanges and methods that they can use to acquire that Bitcoin. So this was a big event. There was over 1,000 attendees here, which means there was over 1,000 companies and corporations that attended this event. Tesla themselves, I believe, had 3 people attending that I had heard and saw. So now we are seeing what has happened out of that. Tesla announcing they've purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. I'm going to play just a short couple, a minute worth of this video here to just build on some of the points that Michael was talking about during this conference. So let's listen in.
I'll just move on to just one final set of thoughts, which is there's a macroeconomic wind blowing. It's going to impact $400 trillion of capital. That capital is sitting in fiat instruments that are being debased. That capital is going to want to convert into strong money. And so if you support an on-ramp to convert that layer of money in that regulatory jurisdiction into Bitcoin or a derivative of Bitcoin, you've got a massive business. So think about a Cartesian system. There are layers of money, there are jurisdictions. Consumer savings is type of money. Retirement accounts is a type of money. Institutions have money. There are equity funds with money that can invest in the stock market equity. There are debt funds. They have another flavor of money. There's corporate cash, treasury reserves with another flavor of money. There's state and local governments with flavors of money, pension funds, annuities, federal governments, futures and options market. They're all flavors of money. In the US, there's a sort of regulatory jurisdictions. If you can solve the compliance issues, you can convert that flavor of money into a Bitcoin derivative. It'll be a different problem in Argentina. It'll be different in the EU. It'll be a different set of regulatory jurisdictions in the UK or any other country. So if you're in this business, you have to solve the regulatory compliance issues that are changing. Then you have to offer a product for that flavor of money. And don't fall into the trap of thinking that there's one size that fits all. There isn't. there's someone who can click on a button in PayPal and they can buy some Bitcoin, and that's all they can do, and they'll be happy. And there's a corporation that can buy a Bitcoin fund and they can buy $1 billion of it in a day, but that's all they can do. And they'll be happy with that, but they can't buy the one in the UK or Malta. And there's a company in the UK that can buy it a different way. If you solve the problem of how you transform the layers of money in the jurisdictions into Bitcoin derivatives, then you're going to see trillions of dollars of capital flow, and you will either capture the capital in your bank or in your app, or you'll enable it and you'll get paid. So
what Michael's doing is he's providing a roadmap for every corporation out there to accept Bitcoin, to reserve in Bitcoin, to create products that allow for the ability to capture the value of Bitcoin, because there's a transfer of wealth happening. There's a change in money and what's considered hard money, valuable money. And I thought that this was very powerful because we've never seen a CEO actually provide guidance to every other company out there how to capture as much value from this wealth transfer that's taking place. One of the interesting things from this talk as well is that, again, it goes back to the comment about Tesla accepting Bitcoin for payments for their products. So, Tesla, in a sense, is capturing this value as well, because they're not just accepting dollars for their products, but they're going to accept Bitcoin. So this is a value add to their business. It's an ability for them to capture value. But after this event, we're starting to see that there's probably going to be a lot more on-ramps happening. There's probably going to be a lot more innovations happening within different corporations and companies, which means more adoption for Bitcoin. So let's keep an eye on that going forward. This was a great event. If you want to listen to these videos, you can head over to Microstrategy, and they're on there for free for everyone to listen. So I recommend doing that. But let's dig into some of the actual other companies that have purchased Bitcoin. So what Tesla's done, they're not the first. Microstrategy was the first company that publicly announced their allocation to Bitcoin. Tesla's just taken a little while to come on it, but MicroStrategy really kicked off a wave of other companies that have since purchased. So this here is a tweet from Bill Bardia here, and you'll see again MicroStrategy, the first company. Their initial basis price for their purchase was $1.1 billion. They have over 71,000 Bitcoin on their treasury balance sheets, or in their treasuries, and today's value is a little over $3 billion. So you see they've doubled the cash. They've doubled the cash in their treasuries just from a matter of holding Bitcoin over a series of 4 or 5 months. So you see right here again, 0.338% return. Square was one of the second companies that did it, and you'll see here they just kicked it off now. So Tesla will obviously rank up here. We'll probably see them. They haven't announced their official number of Bitcoin that they've purchased or the actual price yet, but I'm going to imagine it's going to be around that $30,000 Bitcoin mark. So again, Bitcoin treasuries, we're seeing this adoption happen by companies purchasing Bitcoin now for their treasuries. But why are they doing this? Why are they purchasing Bitcoin for their treasuries? Well, they're doing it because of the risk in the dollar that they see right now. So when Michael was saying there's a macro headwind coming, what he's referring to is the money supply and the amount of inflation that we're starting to see in the markets. So this is a chart from the Fed. So this is from the St. Louis Fed, which is the Federal Reserve Bank of the U.S. And what you'll see here on the y-axis is billions of dollars. So this is So this chart is the M2 money stock. So this is the money supply. This is the money supply in the U.S. So this accounts for deposits, accounts for liquid cash, and then it's also a forecast of created money by the Fed. So what you're looking at is the amount of money that's existing in the U.S. economy at one time, essentially, right? So we got y-axis is the amount of money in billions of dollars. X-axis is time. So you see here, this is 1985. This is 2020. These gray areas here were considered recessions. Okay, so you see this is the tech boom. This is the housing crisis. global financial crisis. Okay. And this blue line is the money supply. All right. So you'll notice once we get over to 2020, once we get over to March 2020, you'll notice the growth in the money supply. And it's almost gone vertical. And you notice here that we haven't even gone into 2022 yet. We're still in 2021, but this amount of money that's being created is starting to go parabolic. So what Michael Saylor is referring to, and I just noticed my window was there, but essentially you'll see the same thing. So let me see if I can move that for you. Actually, here I'll go like that a little bit. All right, there we go. Right. So you'll notice here, right? Global financial crisis, 2010, 11, 12. Once we hit March of 2020, pandemic kicks off, and the amount of money created in the U.S. And around the world almost goes vertical. So when he's talking about a macro headwind, what he's talking about is the risk of inflation in the dollar. And if you're a corporation that's sitting on billions of dollars in cash, and that cash is going to be worth 50% less in 5 years because the inflation, the amount of money being created at one time is going up exponentially. Now you have to start worrying about that, and you have to start looking for alternatives on where you can preserve that wealth. And this is why we've seen Microstrategy was the first company to do this. Tesla now is also doing this, and you're seeing a domino effect happening within most publicly traded companies. Now we're talking about these macro issues, the dollar, inflation, and is it going to stop is the next question. Well, that brings me to this next article here by Brian Brooks. This is an article that was put out by CoinDesk, actually. So you'll see here, ex-OCC Chief Brooks calls Tesla's Bitcoin buy a bit scary for the rest of the world. Now let's build some context into who Brian Brooks is. So Brian Brooks, a little over a year ago, was actually the chief legal officer of Coinbase. Coinbase is the largest or one of the largest Bitcoin exchanges in the United States. Brian Brooks stepped down from Coinbase because he got a job to oversee the OCC, which is the Office of the Competency of the Controllers. The OCC is the agency in the U.S. government that oversees the currency and the banking industry. So the OCC oversees all the banking industry in the United States and the currency. So he got pulled from Coinbase by Steve Mnuchin, who's the head of the Treasury, to oversee the U.S. banking industry and oversee the currency. This was a little over a year ago. Back then, we started to see that, okay, now Steve Mnuchin has taken the chief legal officer of Coinbase, one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the U.S., to oversee the U.S. banking industry. So that made us aware that the U.S. government at the time was thinking about crypto. We know that central bank digital currencies are becoming more prevalent. So is the U.S. planning to create a central bank digital currency? But now you know who Brian Brooks is. So he's no longer the... let's ignore that one. Always change your passwords. But he's no longer the OCC chief, so he stepped down a little while ago. All right, but what does this mean, though? So let's read into the article a little bit. So Brooks said the U.S. money supply will have risen 40% over the last 12 months once the most recent round of stimulus is done. So Brooks was responding in part to Tesla's announcement on Monday that it had invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin and would be looking to acquire more digital assets. That news sent the price of Bitcoin higher. Okay, the former acting comptroller noted that the U.S. money supply has risen 25% since the start of the pandemic and will be up 40% compared with a year ago once most of the recent round of stimulus is done. That's crazy, right? Brooks asked. The way inflation works is the more of asset you have, the less valuable it is. That would explain why a lot of institutions want to have Bitcoin sitting in their treasury, because it's a lot more stable source of value over the long haul. Okay, so what Brian Brooks is saying is that in 2020, the money supply, so in 2020, this growth in the money supply that you see here was over 25%. Okay, over 25%. And he's saying that once we get done with these next rounds of stimulus packages that we see this year, which right now we know we have a $1.9 trillion one waiting for us in DC, the money supply is going to grow at 40% more than it did last year. So we're now seeing massive amounts of inflation happen, which devalues the dollar, which is starting to worry companies. So that builds in a little context into why Tesla is doing what they're doing. They're doing it because they're trying to preserve the value of their company, because dollars are becoming worth less through inflation. Same thing with Microstrategy, same thing with Square. And this is a trend that I expect to continue as we go forward. So a lot of exciting times ahead, folks, and really, really cool stuff. So that's going to be it for today's episode. So again, Tesla purchasing $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, doing it to preserve their wealth. And if you really like these episodes and you want to learn more, you want to stay up to date on Bitcoin education and Bitcoin news updates, you can head over to adoption.io. That is adobtion.io. And you can go ahead and search through all of the different tutorials that I have, learn how to buy and sell Bitcoin. You can also click subscribe, and that will bring you over to my Substack page where you can get subscribed to get our email updates every time these videos come out. And yeah, so a lot of good stuff here, folks. But thanks again. I really appreciate talking to you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, everyone. Take care.